Welcome to Rick's Corner. I have a very special guest today, a man who's been around a long time, and he's the backbone of Gold's Gym. He took it over in 1979 along with was Pete Grimkowski,
Right.
and Paul.
No, Tim Kimber.
And Tim Kimber, that's right. And Mr. Ed Connors, and it's a pleasure to have him because I've been trying to get you for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been in town.
Right.
But you're here now.
Yes.
And here we are.
Right.
Okay. Let's go back a little bit because I want to get into this Google thing later without hitting it right off the bat. So when you took over the gym in '79, it was on Hampton?
No, it was on 2nd Street in Santa Monica, 1452 2nd Street.
That's right. I remember going in there. And who had it at the time?
Ken Sprague.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember
Joe Gold started Gold's Gym in '65.
'65.
He owned it for 5 years.
Right.
And he sold it to someone who sold it to someone who sold it to Ken Sprague who sold it to us.
Right. Now I remember the story. 2nd Street, it's just
it was our landlord was Robert Blake, Beretta.
That's right.
And it was 4,400 square feet. I'm an architect also, so over the years I've focused on square footage.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have a women's toilet or obviously locker room shower.
Yeah, you want me to tell you a funny story?
Yeah.
I was training there one day and I went to take a shower and I met this girl in the gym. It was my birthday. She came running into the shower and I'm stark naked handing me a birthday card.
Yeah.
That was, I mean.
Well, no, I can believe it happened. It was, I mean, people don't realize, but back in those days, like the large gyms, the spas, like, you know, President's First Lady or some of these other silly names, they were Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for men, Tuesday, Thursday for women. Saturday was co-ed and they were closed on Sunday.
That's
so
right.
Gold's really, we pioneered co-ed fitness, and everyone thought we were going to have problems with that, and we never did.
I grew up in Bakersfield, and I went to a gym called Baby's Gym, and it was the same situation, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday girls, and I worked there for a while, and I asked the guy, why don't you just incorporate it all? He says, well, the women don't want to work out with the men.
Yeah.
Well, nowadays they do.
Well, to some degree they don't. I mean, they don't want to get made up or I mean, I think it's a good idea to have a women's only area in a club, but no, but there's you know, co-ed fitness is something that we actually, I think, encouraged, and it was part of the women's lib and all that, the movements that we were part of.
Well, the gym in the 80s became the dating bars of the 80s.
Yeah, right. In fact, yeah, the Rolling Stone magazine, I still have the copy, has a picture of John Travolta on it and called the gyms the clubs of the 80s, yeah.
He and Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical.
Yeah,
that came out back then, and that was all about gyms and training. You've seen a lot of changes over the years. Were you really you weren't really involved in bodybuilding per se, just running the gym basically?
Well, I was an overweight kid that had joined a gym. I was worried about. I knew I was going to be drafted for Vietnam, and I wanted to lose weight, so I did. In fact, I went into the Army. I lost, I think, almost 80 pounds, and they had a special fat farm for overweight guys. And you know, I've been fighting weight my whole life, but no, I had joined a gym in college to try and lose weight. Yeah. And you know, saw the business and you know, was fascinated by it. And I met Pete Grimkowski in Florida when I was looking for work. I got laid off work as an architect, and Disney was hiring for Epcot back then. In the late 70s, and I met him, and he was the biggest guy I'd ever seen, and I had gone for a job interview out in California, and I said, gee, you know, and I'd gone to Gold's Gym when it was on 2nd Street, back then, and I said, you know, you'd be the biggest guy in the gym, you ought to go out there and go for it, and go, it was Weider's Mr. America back then, and it was high class, and he actually, I said, you know, if I take the job out in L.A., which I was tempted to, I'll, you know, I'll send you a plane ticket and you can stay with me. And then, you know, several years later, he called me up and said, Ed, you know, Gold's Gym is for sale. Are you interested? And I said, you know, sure. And I ironically saved about 15 grand for a new BMW. Yeah. And I used that money to buy essentially 25% interest in.
It's the best move you ever made.
Right.
What happened to the BMW?
Oh, I've had several. I mean, I learned that BMW back then stood for Break My Window. That was the era when they were breaking into the cars and stealing radios out of them. So, yeah, I frankly, you know, I think it's, I mean, I'm not really into BMWs or cars right now, but no, it was the three of us. Well, Denny Doyle was the third person originally, and then he dropped out, and then it was Tim, Pete, and me, and, you know, we grew Gold's Gym. We bought it in '79, and I'd gone to school at Berkeley, and I had some friends up there who had opened a gym in San Francisco, and they said, well, we we couldn't be Gold's Gym, but we wanted to be the next best thing, so they called themselves Diamonds. And but they weren't happy there. They wanted to get down to Southern California, and they said, Ed, would you buy our gym? And I said, well, you know, I can't buy it and call it Ed's Gym with any hope of success, but maybe we could make it a franchise or license. We called it a license.
Is that what became the franchise?
June 17th, 1980 was Gold's Gym in San Francisco was the first franchise.
I'll be darned. I didn't know that.
And I've been involved in 31 of them. So we grew the chain. When Pete, Tim, and I bought it, was obviously the one location. We moved it back to Venice, I think in 80 or 81, I forget now. And that's when we signed the lease that the current operators are still operating under. And we grew the chain to 534 gyms in 1999. In 20 years, we grew it to that number. We sold to a private equity company out of Florida, Brockway Moran, and they held it for 5 years. We stayed on as shareholders, and I was on the board of directors, and for a while there sold franchises. But the reason we sold, we were getting sort of picked. I always felt that we should be the largest gym chain in the world. And all the 25 years that Pete, Tim, and I were part of Gold's Gym, we were the biggest gym chain in the world. But then in '94, 24 Hour Fitness and Town Sports International on the East Coast started buying up our more successful operators, and I think we lost 50 gyms in a pretty short time, and I got scared. And I felt I was looking for a white knight or someone to come in who could buy the company and then also buy up the gym owners that wanted to sell. And it worked for when we stopped the bleeding. Brockway grew it to about 700, and then they sold in 2004, and that's when Pete, Tim, and I, stepped out of corporate.
Who did they sell to? They
sold it to a company called TRT out of Dallas, which is owned by Bob Rawlings, who's a Texas billionaire oil man. He
just bought the gym business. They didn't really much know about the gym business, just as a business.
I guess he just bought it as a business. I'm surprised at what's the expression? Surprised but not, or disappointed but not surprised at what he's done with Gold's Gym. It's
well, let me ask you something. When you started the business out and you started growing, what was your plan to make it grow like it did? How did you do that?
Well, we didn't charge a lot of money for the franchise fee. We were actually hoping to we were making more money at one point on the T-shirts. So we were kind of a clothing company masquerading as a gym chain.
Oh, I see. I
mean, we would buy that shirt you have on. We would have it screened and have it made for about $225. We would sell it to our gym owners for $450. We would keystone it. They would sell it for $9.95. Everyone made money. And back in those days, there weren't many gyms that could have a retail component and make that kind of money. And a good gym owner, was doing maybe $15,000 a month in sportswear. So if he was keystoning it, he's making $7,500. Our fees never, back then were half of that for the year. And now the Gold Gym International has gone to a higher fee structure where they want a percentage of gross revenue. So, but no, we were selling a lot of T-shirts.
Well, T-shirts are a good business. When I had first done the Gold's logo, after that I started doing other bodybuilding designs and putting them in Leaders magazine. Nobody else had T-shirts.
I designed this logo.
Did you?
Weight plate.
So we're two designers sitting here.
We are two designers.
I love this one.
We sort of modernized the Gold's guy, and of course it was obvious to take use a weight plate design, and I think round logos can be pretty powerful.
Oh, I think so too. I love it.
So it's
and T-shirts never go out of style. Everybody buys one. They have to have one in every color, and it's just one of those things that goes crazy. In bodybuilding, everybody wears T-shirts, so that's it's the best market you can have. Did you start sponsoring contests as well?
Yeah, we were running contests. I think we're doing a very good job. I mean, I'm kind of appalled at how it is nowadays because, Pete, Tim, and I didn't even charge entry fees because we felt, the competitors are the show. They shouldn't have to pay. And I think now they're paying $150 or $100 dollars for an entry fee, and we had sponsorship fees near the end. We actually produced Mr. America at Caesar's Palace in the early '80s, and got it on HBO. That was one of our last contests. We were kind of asked, I think, to depart that enterprise because I really don't think gym owners should judge or be involved in contests because it looks like they're having their favorites.
Exactly.
But we never judged, but we did put on the contest, and of course I suppose there was the people were thinking, well, if someone from Gold's wins, I mean, it helps us. But I don't think that we really ever cared. We wanted our members to do well, but we weren't going to cook the judging.
But it is very political anyway.
It's very political now. It wasn't back then. It's a shame.
There were a lot of changes from the 70s to the 80s when I trained Arnold and Draper and Zane, and people talk about how everybody had their own unique physique, and you could do a silhouette and you could tell them on stage.
Right.
It really changed over the years.
Yeah, I don't like where it is right now. I mean, it's just, I think it's everything in every aspect of sports in America, though, is kind of tainted the same way, where it's taken to extremes.
Yeah.
I mean, people are overeating, overtraining, over-supplementing. It's not fun anymore, and it's not a lifestyle that I'm comfortable promoting right now. I mean, back in the old days, God, you could go out with the guys and have a meal, and now it's I mean, it's different.
Well, it was in the 70s too. We all hung out at the original Gold on Pacific, and we'd eat together and go out on the weekends to the marina together and hang out at the beach together. It was like a family.
Well, there's much more camaraderie, yeah. But I mean, Gold's Gym Venice still has a welcoming culture. I think Pete, Tim, and I did a very good job of creating that kind of environment.
Yeah, you did.
It's still there. It's not like it used to be, I don't think, but it's still magic for many.
Oh, sure it is. But a lot of those guys are gone.
Yeah,
a lot of them have died.
Yeah.
Tragically, I mean.
Tragically, yeah. I mean, I'm outliving a lot of people I knew well. Paul DeMeo, Eric Fromm.
Yeah.
And among the younger guys for sure.
Well, back then you had the Barbarians.
Yeah, they're still around.
And Hulk Hogan came in, and Mr. T. They shot. What was it? They shot their TV show down there. And a lot of the guys I don't see anymore. I mean, I run into Dave Sachs. I mean, he's from old school, and a couple of guys.
I remember him, yeah.
And Ed Giuliani, who's 80 now.
Yeah.
But there's very few guys left, and it's really sad because that whole culture, that whole camaraderie thing is just out the window.
Well, and the young guys nowadays don't know history. And there's one of my favorite architects who died recently said you cannot not know history. And it's shocking to me that how little they know of the past.
Right.
And that's what is so great what you're doing to kind of educate people. Because, I mean, I showed someone recently, I have a old, I think it was, I forget the name of it, Muscle Up magazine or something from 1983, a cover of Matt Mendenhall. And he was a house guest, and I said, this is before all the craziness, and look at him. I mean, I still an incredible physique. I mean, I would rather look like him than almost 90% of the people I see nowadays, and I think the general public would feel the same way.
I hired Matt to paint my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he needed money at one point.
That's right, he lived in the valley.
Yeah, he painted my house for me along with two other guys. Nice guy.
There's an example where, I mean, I think these judges have got to realize that they're changing fate. They're really messing with someone's life. And Matt came in second 3 years in a row, and it was like the judges were forcing him. They wanted him to sort of beat himself or be incredible. And if he had gotten a pro card, I mean, I think bodybuilding would be better or different right now because of that. And it's tragic that I had a lot of problem with the judging over the years.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, we all took steroids. Everybody took steroids in moderation. Some in excess. But back then, the bodies were much more pleasing to look at.
Well, and I've been around this over 30 years, and I can honestly say I've never known anybody who was hurt taking steroids. And
good point.
And growth hormone or diuretics, I can't say the same thing about.
No.
But I come from a medical family, and I have these arguments with my brothers or dad at one point.
Or people on the street.
Or people on the street. When you're walking down the street and I'll be with someone, they'll yell steroids. But if it were just a matter of taking steroids, I mean, we'd be 300-pound freaks. Exactly. But it's a lot of work and a lot of eating and diet I think that's one of the. I mean, this trial going on back east now with the baseball player and the way they talk about steroids and injections. And let's talk about alcohol and cigarettes.
Absolutely.
More people, I mean, alcoholism is really, it's destroyed. A lot of the young people, the fitness people I've met, basically they started lifting weights to protect themselves from their alcoholic father who was beating them or their mother. And I think there needs to be more, there needs to be decent research. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't know one bodybuilder who was made impotent or sterile taking steroids. Well, but you open the labels on the boxes as warning this will cause sterility or impotence. Bullshit.
No, it's bullshit. You and I are the same age.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot come and go.
Yeah.
And you and myself both. I've never seen one person in the hospital or die from steroids.
And I've never known anybody that couldn't have a baby.
That too.
And you know, I
had 3 kids when I was young.
I just saw Gunther Schlierkamp, and he was joking about his kid they didn't expect it, and a wonderful, healthy boy. And he said, yeah, the doctor says all it takes is, you know, 1 sperm to make it through. And
sometimes you don't want that one to get through.
Yeah, but they're thrilled. But they didn't think it was quite possible. And I'm meeting more and more young people who think that because they're taking something, they can do anything, and they need to be responsible.
Absolutely. The thing is that the news takes something and they take it out of context.
Right.
Like when they were here the other night and they did Channel 4, they thought that Hampton was the original Gold's Gym.
Yeah.
And I said, no, it's at Channel 6 Pacific, and they had no clue.
Yeah.
So they went down and they took a picture of it. Then I said, I'd moved to 2nd Street and they moved here. But they're not aware, and people who watch TV and they hear the news that someone died of steroids, it's such misinformation.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Well, I'm glad that this kind of, got the news about Google moving in, got people looking again at Gold's Gym, because I think, we were one of the better kept secrets in LA, and we shouldn't be.
Right. Well, all right, let's get to the real story of that. That's what you guys want to know, right? Okay, what's going to happen with Gold's? And when you made the deal, you made the deal with Google at the time?
No, heavens no.
Who did?
No, I mean, we sold 8 years ago. So the new owners right now are apparently in negotiations to lease the space from Google.
All right,
our lease is up. Our original lease was with Larry Field, NSB, in Beverly Hills.
And they own the property?
They own the whole area down there.
Okay, who owns the area? And then did they sell that to Google?
As far as I know, yeah.
And that was way back?
That was maybe, I don't know, half a year ago.
Okay, so now Google buys it a year and a half ago, and they decide now they want to develop it, right?
Yeah, but the lease, our lease, when you buy a property, you have to abide by the existing lease, and our lease wasn't up until mid-2014.
Okay.
Now, to me, it's a strange move on Google's part. I know they want to develop a whole campus and probably wall off the streets, but if I were them, I think they'd be better better helping their employees and themselves by letting their employees train with the regular people at Gold's Gym.
Absolutely.
Rather than having. They have actually put a gym in the building across the street.
Okay.
I mean, the Gold's Gym, area down there, if you're not real familiar with it, your viewers may not be, but Gold's Gym is here, and then next to it is the former Digital Domain headquarters, James Cameron. That's where Terminator and Titanic were worked on.
Right.
And then across the street, actually, the gas company building was Arnold's first office.
Right.
And then next to that is La Rose Cafe, but then next to the gas company on the other side is the Heyday building that designed by Frank Gehry, has a sculpture in front, a pair of binoculars that was done by Klaus Oldenburg.
That's right, sure.
And then next to that is this former electronics company building, TSI, I think they were called. So all that property is owned by Larry Field, NSB, and as far as I know, it's all been sold to Google.
Oh man, that's a lot of property.
Yeah. But I mean, why couldn't they have taken the bus yard? I mean, for years when Tim and I owned the gym, we were trying to get the city to get the bus company out of there because it's a noise and pollution issue, and it's very valuable land, and they could that's the kind of thing you could put under a freeway and no one would mind.
The bus yard's huge.
It is huge.
Do they still use it?
Yeah, it's packed. So yeah, I mean, I think there are options for Google, and if they're going to bring in 7,000 employees, they're going to need more space, and there's a height limit down there, so the Gold's building itself is not. You can't do much more with it.
Right.
But yeah, I think
because of the ocean view type of thing.
Well, no, I don't know. Just height limited. I think density. I think the city was concerned about density, and I think these corporations who are now discovering fitness and changing their cafeteria plans for their employees. They also, I think, would be better served having their employees train with other people.
I think it's a great idea.
I mean, a mix. I mean, it's kind of that they want to keep them there all the time. They feed them breakfast, lunch, dinner, and most of those guys, I'm sure, work incredible hours.
Yeah.
But if you could, they can walk across the street to one of the greatest gym environments in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That'd be a natural thing.
Yeah.
Now, there's also a rumor now that came out on the internet tonight or yesterday that they're extending the lease another 5 years. Someone came up with that.
Well, that's I understand from Gold Gym International that they're negotiating a new 10-year lease.
Oh.
So if that happens, I think, frankly, it thanks to your interview and the news media, maybe Google now feels some pressure to do that, because I think they realize that. I remember reading many years ago that Venice Beach is the second biggest tourist draw in LA County, after
Yeah.
Universal Studios.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that Gold's Gym is a big part of Venice Beach.
It's a huge part of it. People come down to see the Mecca. They go
Yeah.
down to see the weight pit. They want to see where all the bodybuilders and
Right.
Arnold hung out.
Yeah.
This is a big thing to them.
Right.
And if you don't have that, Venice is going to lose a lot of people.
I think so, yeah.
So what do you see happening? What's your prediction?
You know, I don't know. I hope something has worked out, and I hope Gold's continues to grow, but I think the current management needs to treat the individual gym owners better and grow the brand.
Yeah. You know, there's complete panic down there right now.
Is it?
Yeah. I get a lot of emails when I talk to a lot of people down there. They contact me as if I know everything. I don't know anything other than what I'm getting from you. What's going to happen to the gym? That's not fair. We want to train. They're going to take our gym away. We won't have a home anymore.
But this is the kind of outrage that needed to be expressed. I think otherwise, I don't know that Gold Gym International in Dallas understands the gravity of the situation.
Probably not.
I mean, frankly, you know, when this gentleman bought the company 8 years ago, I mean, one of my first things to do would have been to buy, you know, secure that real estate.
Yeah.
We actually owned, Pete, Tim, and I, when we sold, we owned 4 lots in the back that are used for parking.
Yeah, I know where they are.
So that's part of the value. I mean, that's part of the real estate. So, I mean, surely back 8 years ago, when there was no Google and Horizon, he could have easily bought that property, I'm sure.
Yeah. Google's big.
Yeah, but Google is, they've done a beautiful job of cleaning up those buildings, and it's going to help the area. But I think the gym is very valuable to everybody.
If you drive behind the gym, though, I've noticed there's a lot of homeless people living on the
streets.
streets.
Well, but they'll probably, maybe that's why they wanted to buy everything and close it off. They wanted to fence it off. But the cities, they've now got parking restrictions for overheight vans, and that's a little bit better than it was. But we used to be, you know, I remember, I mean, Jean-Claude Van Damme lived in a trailer behind it, Kevin Sorbo. There are a lot of bodybuilder, fitness, famous people that lived in vans and joined the gym to shower, and it's a little grungier now, but the idea is the same, and it's too bad there isn't some place for all those vehicles, and you know, it is messy at times. But
it was no different back in the 70s when Bill Pettis lived in
I remember
on top of the gym and showered down there. That was his home, and Cal Scalick lived out of a big van and showered there. I mean, a lot of people didn't realize they think back then all bodybuilders were rich and they could do anything they wanted, but no one had any money.
No,
they were the poorest of the poor.
No, it was a struggle, and you know, Pete, Tim, and I, we'd give away about $60,000 a month in free memberships and clothing and stuff, just goodwill. Yeah. And I think it came back to us.
It always does. That's karma.
But you know, people like who would come in there and couldn't afford, and I mean, the Barbarian Brothers, I know when we sold, they came up to me and said, "Ed, they want to make us pay," and I said, you know, after 25 years, don't you think it's time?
Of course.
And
of course.
But you know, they were part of the scene, and again, we would hope that if we gave someone a membership and a T-shirt, they might wear it, you know, where it could be seen. And
I wear it on Rick's Corner.
You know, now the new people, I've had 2 photographers call me asking me if I could do anything with Gold's International because they want to charge them to shoot there. Yeah. And we actually, you know, we welcomed all the photographers. We even gave Chris Lunn a studio there. We were very welcoming, and because that was free, we couldn't afford to advertise in the magazines. But if you read any bodybuilding magazine back in those days, you subliminally the only gym chain you thought about was Gold's Gym when you put it down.
That's right.
And that was because of all the shoots going on in the gym, the guys wearing our clothing, and now they're going to charge. They don't allow it. And with social media, I think they even ought to be more welcoming right now.
Well, I will say that they let me shoot Rick's Corner there on Sundays.
Well, that's great.
I asked Josh, and he said you can come here anytime and shoot what you want because he's getting publicity out of it.
Well, that's terrific.
And I've never had a problem. They've been very nice to me.
I'm really glad to hear that.
And I met the 3 guys in charge about 3 months ago. They're out from Texas, and he made an introduction to me. And
Dave Reesmuller, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Very nice to me. Yeah. Happy to know that I did.
I called him to try and get one of the photographers in. And I thought that was a few months ago, and then now the guys told me that again they want to charge $300 to $500, but you can't really afford that.
No, who can?
Yeah.
Did you know Joe Gold very well?
Yeah, very well. We used to have. I think Joe Gold was never angry or bitter. I heard he regretted ever selling his name.
He did.
But because Pete, Tim, and I didn't buy it from him, and in fact did something good with it. And then he, in fact, copied us with the franchising, which saved him probably. There was no animosity. We would try to have lunch every month.
I have an analogy for that.
Oh.
Okay. You're in a marriage, you have an affair with a woman, your wife finds out, and then you get divorced, but you marry a third woman. She doesn't dislike that one. She only dislikes the one you had the affair with.
Exactly.
So basically, Joe Gold had no animosity against you.
Yeah. In fact, I think even, I mean, there was no animosity, and you know, Mike Uritz, because we would compare, because we would get potential gym owner franchisees shopping us.
Yeah.
And we might have problems with one, and they would go to World, and World would want to know how we felt about them, because there were some. I mean, we were trying to clean up the gym business, because this is an era where people were opening gyms and closing them and taking the money and running.
Yeah, I know. It happened many times.
Yeah.
It happened out here at World Gym when they sold to Steve Davis, and he sold to somebody else, and I drove in one day and all the gates were locked.
Yeah.
And that had all of Gold's equipment that Joe had made himself. Ended up in Sunland, and then that went somewhere, and the people didn't even know what that it actually was. It's like collectibles.
Yeah.
And if you ask some of the guys today, or many of the people in Gold's Gym in Venice, who's Joe Gold, they don't know.
Yeah.
No clue. The man who started the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, he came to me after he came back and he opened World Gym, and he had said to me, "I need a logo." I said, "What do you want?" He says, "I don't know. An animal." A lion? He says, "I don't know." How about a gorilla? He says, "Okay, the gorilla will work." So we did the gorilla. And that's kind of funny, because now I feel like I'm a family of World and Gold, because I'm connected, you know.
Well, we were a family. It was two different approaches. When Arnold owned the gym, I remember I ran into him in his restaurant. We used to eat there quite often with our gym owners and Shotzi's at the time. And he said, "Ed, why is your gym so busy and mine's empty?" And I said, "Well, it's the stereo system." And he laughed, thinking I was making a joke. But
it probably was.
But Joe Gold kept it like a tomb in there.
Right. No music.
No music. So, you know, it's a simple thing, but it worked.
Yeah. Well, he even said, you know, we didn't have any our cardio equipment back in the day.
Yeah, right.
And he didn't want music. And when he opened the other gym, he didn't want music. He didn't want water bottles.
Well, in fact, let me tell you about the cardio equipment. People don't realize, again, I was showing somebody the gym yesterday, and I said, you see the maintenance shed in the back and then the toilets in the front. I saw the Menser brothers riding their bikes on Venice Beach, and I said, well, you know, we ought to bring that activity inside.
Yeah.
But it's boring. So why don't we put the bikes on top of the toilets and top of the maintenance shed, and people can look down and watch the gym.
Where it is now.
Yeah. But they've actually walled off the area. But then it became, you know, I called it, you know, cardio in front of TV, and then it became cardio theater, and it developed. So yeah, those were $350 squirrel cage bikes, and now they're $5,000 pieces of equipment.
I know. I mean, all the treadmills and the bikes and all that in there. I mean, everybody uses them. It's part of.
No, it's
but back in the day, we didn't really do any cardio. We might take a run on the beach.
Yeah. Well, people would run down to the stairs in Santa Monica.
Yeah. But most of it was diet.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. Drop the carbs.
Yeah.
Hardest thing in the world to do.
So no, it was a different world, and it's changed, and we evolved. Fortunately, that warehouse we moved into in 80 or 81, I forget now, we were able to grow over time. Yeah. We started with 6,600 square feet, and now it's 26,000.
Wow,
so we could have added, so we were able to add cardio and aerobics, Group X, whatever they call it now.
Yeah. So where do you see bodybuilding going now?
You know, I think everything has its peaks and valleys, and right now it's in kind of a valley, and I hope it comes back again in some form.
Yeah, I do too, but what do you think the reason is it's in a valley?
Yeah, I think, again, it's our society where we take everything to extreme, and I keep telling these guys, you know, this is not bowling. There's nothing magic about 300, but this obsession to get huge, and you know, and the stupid stuff people are doing to get that way, it's out of control.
It is out of control. Growth hormone has its purpose for people who are older and they want to try to rejuvenate, but then you're going into the insulin.
Yeah.
And insulin.
Well, the insulin, I mean, that and the growth, it just, I mean, it's dangerous. I mean, I know, you and I probably both know half a dozen people that are dead because of that. Yeah. Then
they go into pain pills and diuretics.
Yeah. Well, then you're turning yourself on and off, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's tragic, and it's, again, I mean, it's bigorexia. They look in the mirror and they think they're small, but they're not, and it's really sad. And the magazines, I mean, aren't helping.
No.
I mean, it's just a freak show in the magazines.
That's all it is.
The new cover I saw, I think it was Muscle and Fitness, was it, or with Kai Green on the cover, and I mean, these angry, like, animals just.
That's a point that you bring up. You know, I had said to somebody back in the 70s and 80s, when guys were in the magazine, even Steve Reeves, they'd pose and have a nice smile on their face. Today it's this grimace.
Yeah,
it's all
and
anger.
I've always told the guys, try and get the photographer to take pictures of you smiling or looking like you're having fun. And, pleasant. I know it's, but you don't want to be that mean growling. But the magazines seem to love that, and I don't like it.
Well, because bigger is better and makes you tougher.
Yeah.
And it's not about being tough. It's,
right.
You know, it's just about being you, and that's what it's all about. In fact, a big guy who looks tough, if he's got a soft side to him, people love it.
Yeah.
It's approachable.
Well, and people said, are you going to hire another one of those dumb lifters for your gym? You know, I was involved in 31 Gold's gyms, and I said, sure, I'm not selling shoes. I want someone that, but there are good and big bad guys. There's good, you know, good and bad bodybuilding.
Just like in wrestling, same thing.
Everything. Good and heels and baby faces.
Yep.
I mean, it's no matter what, you know, and I've had some 6'5" guys working the front counter that were like an Abe Lincoln that could sell memberships.
Yeah.
But no, I don't understand this, you know, so much. I mean, I guess I'm getting old.
No, you're not. If you're getting old, then I'm getting old.
Yeah.
I don't want to think that way.
I mean, I sound like oh man sometimes because I'm not happy with the state of affairs, but.
You know, but it's not getting old, it's not becoming an old man, it's being logical and realistic, and you see what things are changing, and it kind of pisses you off because people don't get it.
Yeah.
It's just like I said, they don't know who Joe Gold is. Okay, they're younger, they don't know.
Yeah.
They don't know about, I have 2 shows for AfterBuzz. One is I do a SmackDown hosting, and I do old school wrestling, because old school is the history of wrestling, like the history of bodybuilding. And I try to educate these young kids. We don't care, we just want to jump off the top rope.
Well, and I don't even like where wrestling is right now.
I don't either.
I mean, I've gotten, I think, at least 14 guys in wrestling. You know, John Cena I met in the parking lot.
You got a background in that, too.
Ultimate Warrior and Sting. Sting used to work. Steve Borden ran my Gold's Gym in Reseda.
Right.
And, you know, back then it was a different world, and now it's, I don't like it.
No. It's sensationalized, just like bodybuilding. It's how much can you do.
Yeah.
It's just gone. Yeah. It's like driving a 18-wheeler through the ring. And
I think more of the public would like the wrestling if it were more like it used to be, or same way more people would like bodybuilding. And the shows now, I mean, I went down to see someone at the recent show here in L.A. There were 400 competitors, I think. The show started maybe at 6 or 7 and ended after midnight. And you know, when Pete, Tim, and I were running shows, I mean, to me it should be at most like a long movie, maybe 2.5 hours.
Exactly.
It's got to be marketed, and you got to have ticket prices that start like a $7.50, so a young teenage couple can afford to go. But you know, it's $35 for prejudging, $45 for the night show.
Right.
I mean, it's a year's worth of movies.
Well, it's like we do in a wrestling match, and you're very familiar with that as well.
Yeah.
You tell a story. You have a good opening, and you have a nice middle of the show, and you have a nice ending.
Yeah.
A beginning, middle, and ending with a storyline, and you leave them happy in a short period of time because less is more.
Yeah.
You feed somebody too much, like at a smorgasbord, they'll throw up. You give them a little at a time, make them like it, and then cut them off right when they're at the high point, and you got it.
Well, you have all these crazy categories. I mean, men over 40, men over 50, men over, I mean, what it will be, men on walkers, men in wheelchairs. I mean, it's absurd. It really is. They're killing it.
Yes, they are.
They are killing it.
Well, I don't want to name names, but one of the former Mr. Olympias I saw at a seminar at Fitness Expo, and he was on stage. There were probably 200 people around. I would think that you're going to get up and talk. You stand at a podium, and you answer questions, you dress nice. He was sitting on a chair kneeling with a mic like this. He couldn't stand up because he was so out of breath and blowing up that it was annoying.
Well, I can't believe how some of the guys show up for guest posing, and you know, I don't think they should do that, nor do I think they should get that much overweight. I mean, it's not healthy.
I know, and we know that, but is it going to change? Probably not.
No, but again, everything has this ups and downs, peaks and valleys, and you can't. I mean, that's I guess the thing about life is that I think Pete, Tim, and I were having more fun in the late '80s, and we were probably making more money, but you can't just pull a lever and freeze that period.
No, you can't.
Things you know go on. 9/11 happens and. The world changes, whatever.
The world changes.
Yeah.
That's why we have this show, so we can take them back to where it was, and people who weren't there can get a view through our eyes what we did, because no one really knows and carries it forward. Like the bodybuilders today who are Mr. Olympias and all that, they don't have the charisma or the personality to talk about stuff because they weren't there like Arnold and Franco and those guys did, because they had the charm.
Yeah. And Arnold had the charm. He
actually had the charm.
Amazing. I still admire him and respect him.
Yeah, he's done a lot. I mean, he did it on his own.
Yeah.
No one can fault him for that. All right, so we're just going to wait and see what happens with Google, huh?
Yeah, I think, you know, the uproar must have gotten them thinking, and maybe they will then be eager to work with Gold Gym International for a new lease.
That would be nice.
Yeah, and I hope, in fact, they use the gym. I mean, I hope they forget having their own and work out a membership deal with the management.
All right, one last thing. For the viewers that are watching their training down in Venice who are panicking that they're going to lose their gym, what advice do you give them at this point?
Well, again, certainly there's 2 more years left on the lease, and I think most people now join a gym month-to-month membership, and that's the safest, best way to go. And if you're worried about something happening, and frankly, that's revolutionized the gym business and made it better, is the monthly EFT, the electronic funds transfer from your banking account or your credit card. So, Yeah, I mean, you'll lose nothing, and it'll go on, and God, if you live in other parts of LA, there's always Angel Bonis's gyms, the Gold.
Oh, he's got some great gyms. Yeah, he's got 10 gyms.
Yeah,
I train at the one in North Hollywood.
Right, there's some great clubs. Yeah.
Well, I really want to thank you for doing this.
My pleasure.
This was a big pleasure for me.
Okay.
I'm so glad you're here.
Long overdue. But
yes, I'm so glad you're helping.
I tell you, I would get to Chicago more times than I would get to the Valley.
I don't blame you.
When you live in, people here, your viewership maybe not understand, but LA is, 11 million people, I guess, greater LA. If it were a country, it would be, I think, the 13th or 14th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
But just getting here from Venice, which is maybe, 25 miles at most.
No, it's actually 17 miles.
17 miles.
I clocked it. Could take an hour.
Yeah, easily. It took me an hour today because of the one stalled car on the 405.
The 405 is a nightmare.
They're widening the 405 now, if you can imagine this, viewers, to 7 lanes each way, 14 lanes going through the pass.
And it will still be crowded.
And it will still be crowded. And one car will still screw it up.
It's the rubbernecking. It's got a flat tire. Everybody stops to look. But you're here.
But remember, it's not what you drive, it's the size of the arm hanging out the window that matters.
That's right. That's suntan and blowing up. Well, thank you, Ed, so much.
My pleasure.
My pleasure. And we'll see you next time on Rick's Corner for more news on bodybuilding.